Well, hello, everyone. It is Tuesday, April the 14th, 2026, at a little before 8 o'clock here in Shelton, Connecticut. I'm not expecting anybody to join this live. I didn't notify anybody. I just am testing out all of my YouTube capabilities, and then I will post this to Facebook when it's done. We'll probably do about 10 minutes here. So if anybody's wondering how long this is going to go, do not be worried. This will be a length of a normal live show. So I went to get on the air last night, Monday night the 13th, and the week before the 6th, we were always going to be down because I had a dentist appointment. But I went to go live last night, and I'm now using Maureen's computer, which is worlds better than my old computer. So I don't think it was the computer's fault, but I just could not get Facebook Live to turn over. It went everywhere up until go ahead and start, and then it just wouldn't do it and wouldn't do it and wouldn't do it. And I tried to fix it, and finally I just at about 7:50 gave up, and because I realized even if I get this working at this point, I'm not going to want to continue doing the show. I'm in a bad mood over all this crap. So I went out into the living room and said, you know what? Now's the time. I'm taking the plunge. I'm switching over to YouTube. So I set everything up in the last day or so, and Maureen actually made me a new logo for the split decision. So that was done very quick. And, so the plan as of now is to go live next Monday on YouTube. I did figure while I'm testing all of this out, I would go over the main thing I was going to talk about last night, which is the New York Knicks, who get ready for their first round playoff series, the 3-6 matchup against the Atlanta Hawks, which will begin Saturday at 6 p.m. We only know the date and time of game one. I would like to think by the end of tonight, we will know the rest of the schedule. If not tomorrow, really, they should let it be known by tonight, but that's all we know for now. So, the Knicks, since we were on the air the last time, the Knicks they finished the regular season relatively strong. Last show we did would have been Monday the 30th. Yeah, Monday the 30th. They got their butts kicked in Houston on the 31st, which was, not a good performance. But then they did finish the regular season strong. They beat up on a bad Memphis team coming from behind, but they did win in the fourth quarter on the first. Then on Friday the 3rd, they blew the doors off the Bulls. And again, the Bulls stink. They weren't playing for anything. It was a, relatively meaningless affair for the Bulls. But, the Knicks did what you want them to do against a bad team, and that they've struggled to do, which is beat the crap out of them. The game after that, in a significant game at the time, and is even more of a significant game now, they went down to Atlanta. They beat the Hawks by 3 points. They nearly blew this game, and it was tough to evaluate with hindsight or without the benefit of hindsight. It was tough to evaluate in the moment for a few reasons. The Knicks had let the Hawks really overtake them in the fourth quarter. It looked like the Knicks were going to blow the game. They were down by 5 points with 3:15 left. They tied it with 2:20 left. Brunson got hot, took a 2-point lead with 2:01 left. Back and forth, traded leads. Knicks were up 106-102 with 5 seconds left. So it looked like, okay, they're going to close out a good victory after Brunson went to the line, or OG went to the line with a 2-point lead, hit both free throws to go from 104-102 to 106-102. Hawks take a timeout. They inbound. Obviously, if you're the Knicks, you can't play real close defense here. So, some of it bad luck, but some of it also just unacceptable, which is McCollum hits a 3 real quick. So there's still 2.5 seconds left. And, you'd like them to at least get it to a second there. And that doesn't sound like a big deal, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a big deal. Knicks, don't really get close. And I get you don't want to foul there or go to a 4-point play, send them to the line. But there's a happy medium there between stand there and foul. You could get a little closer. So it's a 1-point game. Hawks foul. Knicks go to the line. Brunson makes both free throws with 1.2 left. So again, did exactly what you'd want him to do. And the Hawks, I forget who it was, but the Hawks inbound it with 1.2, get to just before half court and bank in a 3 to tie the game and go to overtime. And they look at it was horrible execution. The Knicks could have fouled, you know, you can foul as the guy's dribbling down. It's not going to be a shooting foul. You know, even if it sends them to the line, there's going to be at best 0.7 seconds left at best. So if they make the first one, miss the second one, you know, what you can't have is what happened. Now they looked at it, and just by like fingertips, he was still touching the ball. The Knicks did nothing there that would, like, if there'd been 1.4 seconds left, the game would have been going to overtime. It had nothing to do with, well, the Knicks made him pump fake or take one more dribble. It was literally just luck. But the Knicks escape with that win. They win. That was game 80. They then won game 81. Excuse me, that was game 79. Then they played that Celtic team on Thursday the 9th, which we talked about being a big game. And, you know, by then the Celtics had all but wrapped up the number 2 seed. The Knicks were 3 back with 3 to play. They came into the game 3 back with 3 to play. So they needed to go 3-0. The Celtics needed to go 0-3. Was not the, you know, game for the division like we hoped it would be. But I said all along this was an important game, as long as they both weren't sitting all their guys. And the Celtics didn't play Jaylen Brown, but everybody else played. Jason Tatum played 40 minutes, which was arguably not very smart. Derek White played 38 minutes. You know, they played everybody except Jaylen Brown. And the Knicks, with a, you know, dynamic fourth quarter, once again, they were down by, let's see, what was the most they were down by late? About halfway through the fourth quarter, they were down by 7. The Knicks, I'll just do this real quick. They were down by 7 about halfway through the fourth quarter. They took a lead with 4:35 left when Towns hit a 3. Celtics went back in front. You know, they were within a couple of points of each other. The Knicks were actually up 5 with actually Hart. Yeah, that's right. Hart made the 2 back-to-back threes. So the Knicks went up 106-104 with 126 left. Hart hit a 3 to make it a 5-point game. Vucevic made it a 3-point game. Hart hit another 3 with 15 seconds left and iced the game. So the Knicks win 112-106. Again, not full playoff atmosphere, but, you know, they've beaten the Celtics 3 times out of 4 this year, including both at Madison Square Garden. Once was very early in the year, I think the first, if not the second game of the season. Okay. Then they beat them on Super Bowl Sunday up in Boston, and badly. And yeah, Tatum hadn't been back yet, and then they just beat them the other night. So I think, should the Knicks end up playing the Celtics in a second round playoff series, the Celtics will be favored. We know the Celtics will have home court. Those things will all be fair. Do you think there is a Celtics fan that would rather have the Knicks win that series than the Hawks? Is all I would say. You know, to me, it's got less to do about what happened last year. It's, you know, it's just the Knicks have played, you know, the Knicks have played the Celtics well this year. They've beaten them 3 out of 4. And again, you can throw a bunch of caveats about why each one of those games isn't a fully representative game. And to an extent, there's some credence to that. But, you know, I feel like that was an important win. They followed that up with a pretty dominant win over Toronto on Friday night to go 5-0 against Toronto this year, which we'll get back to. The Knicks locked in the 3 seed. So on Sunday, their game didn't matter. They played Charlotte. They didn't play anybody except Mikal Bridges, who played 25 seconds to keep his streak alive, fouled out. That was the end of that. You know, you felt pretty good about the Knicks going into that night. It looked like they had a real good chance to be playing the Raptors in the first round, that the Raptors would get the 6th seed. And the Knicks have played the Raptors 5 times this year. They've beaten the crap out of them at least 4 of those times. They've beaten them 5 times. Hard to draw up a first round playoff series opponent better than the Raptors, you know, for the Knicks. But you knew as a distinct possibility on that last day, the Raptors were playing the Nets, so it was almost a guaranteed win. The Hawks were playing the Heat. The Hawks really could only move between 5 and 6, whereas the Heat were playing to try and get the number 9 seed in, which again, doesn't matter a ton except the 9-10 game, which is going on right now. You want to try to get that game at home. And then the wild card was the Magic and the Celtics, because if the Magic won, it would guarantee basically that the Raptors would be the number 6 seed. And, from the start, the Heat really took it to the Hawks. The Raptors were beating up on the Nets, and it was like, all right, well, it might be the Hawks. And the insurance policy was supposed to be the Magic. The Celtics did not play like their top 7 guys in this game. Celtics were up huge on them in the fourth quarter. Raptors had this crazy comeback to tie it at 108, and then the Celtics scored the last 5 points of the game. So the Knicks do get the sort of tough role there when the alternative is the Raptors. They'll have to play the Hawks. Instead of a team they're 5-0 against this year, it's a team they're 2-1 against. Both of their wins have been very close wins. I remember the first game of the first win back in December because I was listening to it as I was driving home from Fenway Park after the Army-UConn game, and the Knicks were well ahead, and then all of a sudden it was way too tight, and they were lucky to win. What I said to people Sunday and yesterday is, yeah, would I rather it be the Raptors? Absolutely. But you know what? If the Knicks can't get by the Hawks, every team the Knicks are going to have to play in a series after this is so significantly better than the Hawks that if the Knicks, can't get by them, then it was really never anything real to begin with. Now, again, is there something to be said for you'd rather have a series that on paper is a little bit easier? I'll buy that. But again, if they're a truly championship level team, that's going to entail beating the Celtics in the second round. It's probably going to entail beating a Detroit team who's owned them in the Eastern Conference Finals. And that's that's not even talking about the teams out west. You're not going to luck your way into 3 easy series in the playoffs on the road to the finals. So, the Hawks you look at, and again, since this isn't a full show, we're not going to go like line by line here. You look at the Hawks, and yeah, it's easy to look at them since the beginning of February. They lost on January the 31st to go to 24-27, and they finished the year 43. Actually, no, it's a better example is they lost on February the 20th. To be 27-31. So they were 27-31 and they finished 46-36, which means their last 24 games, they finished 19-5. And no matter who you play, as we talked about with the Knicks playing those 7 games against bad teams, you beat them and it's fine. What you need to, when you play bad teams, you need to beat bad teams. And their 7 losses in that stretch were they lost to the Rockets, who are obviously a very good team. They lost to the Celtics in Boston. They lost to the Knicks. They lost to Cleveland in Cleveland. And then they lost to Miami in Game 82 when they really weren't playing anybody. And there are some impressive wins in here. But as I read these off, I'm going to just go through the wins here. Brooklyn, Washington, Portland, Milwaukee, Philly, Dallas, Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Orlando, Dallas, Golden State, Memphis, Detroit, Sacramento, Boston, Orlando, Brooklyn, and Cleveland in Game 81. There's some decent teams in there, but that's not a, dominant stretch. I think too many people are going to compare this to the Pacers last year and how hot the Pacers finish. And that may end up bearing itself out. If we're talking in a week and a half and the Knicks are down 3-1 in the series, or they lose in 5 or 6, or they lose in 7, whatever, then yes, the hot finish will lend credence to, there will be something to that. But, for the Knicks, I think you got to look at it as you're the 3 seed, you're playing a 6 seed. The last couple of years, every playoff series they lost in Tom Thibodeau era, they were the higher seed. They had home court advantage and they lost. And that was one of the reasons that Thibodeau was let go. And, the Mike Brown experiment, I think the jury is very much out on the Mike Brown experiment, but they are entering the playoffs relatively healthy. They managed to get through this year, and that's one thing you do have to say. Obviously some of the guys like Landry Shamet and, Josh Hart and OG Anunoby, guys did miss games, but Mitchell Robinson, what they did with him, no back-to-backs, limiting his minutes, they got him through the year. Towns, Brunson, maybe a game or 2 with injury management or slight things. They got through this year relatively healthy. They're entering the playoffs healthy, and, they're not playing as well as they've played all year. I think they played, they had a couple of stretches where they were playing better than this, but they're certainly outside of the team that lost those, that horrible stretch in January, and they've had their ups and downs since then, but, they're definitely playing pretty well after 82 games and going into it relatively healthy. So, just for this being a brief stream, by the time we're on the air again on Monday of next week, they're only going to have played one game. It's possible game 2 will be that night during the show, but realistically, they'll have played one game. I think winning both of these games at the Garden, especially game 1, would be key and really establish that home court. And, elsewhere in the playoffs, to the extent of looking forward in any way, you want Philadelphia to win tomorrow night, Wednesday night. Philadelphia over who the hell's Philadelphia playing tomorrow? Philadelphia is playing Orlando tomorrow. Yeah. You want Philadelphia to win that game and have Philly get the 7 seed and maybe be a pain in the Celtics' ass for a little while. That would be kind of the goal. Orlando, I think, would probably lose that series in 4 games. So that's sort of my goal for tomorrow. As far as the other teams who gets the 8 seed, whether it's the Heat, the Hornets, or Orlando, whoever wins tonight would be the team I would I would like to see play Detroit. Probably the Hornets, if possible. That game's still just in the first quarter. So anyway, just figured I'd give my quick thoughts on that on the eve of the playoffs and use this as kind of a test run of the live stream, and I will post this, and then otherwise we will see you next Monday night, April the 20th at 7 o'clock on YouTube for the split decision. Take care.